The next 6 hours were the longest of Lucy Grant's life. She moved across the planet like a ghost. Guardian 7 guided her to hidden weapon caches and supply depots that had been sealed for 3,000 years. She found rifles and explosives and medical supplies. She found 2 more combat drones that still had power. She found maps of tunnel systems that ran beneath the entire continent, and she used all of it against the Corvathi. She attacked them from angles they did not expect. She collapsed tunnels to trap their soldiers underground. She used the drones to strike their supply lines. She planted explosives along their march routes and watched from a distance as entire columns of enemy troops disappeared in fire and smoke. The Corvathi had never faced anything like this. Wars had been fought on open battlefields where numbers always won. They did not understand how to fight a single enemy who appeared from nowhere, killed a dozen soldiers, and vanished before they could respond. Commander Zethrak was growing angry and worried. "How many soldiers have we lost?" he demanded. Field Commander Krex checked his datapad. His hands were shaking slightly. 847 dead. Another 300 wounded. 12 supply vehicles destroyed. 2 more landing craft damaged beyond repair. From 1 human? "She is very skilled, Commander." Zethrak slammed his fist against the wall of his command tent. The metal bent under the force. "I want her found and killed. Send out hunting parties. Use thermal scanners. Use everything we have." "Commander, our thermal scanners cannot detect her. Human body temperature is different from anything our systems are designed to find. And she moved through tunnels that we cannot map quickly enough to follow." For a long moment, Zethrak said nothing. Then he made a decision. "Forget the hunting parties. Push forward with everything we have. We take the facility by force. Once we control the sleeping chambers, she will have to come to us." In the underground chambers, Guardian 7 watched the Corvathi advance. Thousands of soldiers were moving toward the main entrance now. They had brought heavy cutting equipment and explosive charges. They would be through the outer doors within hours. "Colonel Grant," Guardian 7 said through her communication device, "the enemy is concentrating their forces on the main facility. They will breach the outer defenses soon." Lucy was hiding in a maintenance tunnel 2 kilometers away. She had been awake for almost 18 hours now. Her body was exhausted. The injuries she had taken were getting worse. Blood was seeping through the bandages on her arm. "How long until the revival is complete?" 6 hours and 12 minutes. 6 more hours. Lucy looked at her remaining supplies. She had 1 rifle with a partial charge, 1 pistol, a handful of explosives, 2 drones that were nearly out of power. It was not enough, not even close to enough. "Guardian, I need you to do something." "What you require, Colonel?" "Wake them all, everyone on the planet. Not just my team, everyone." There was a pause. When Guardian 7 spoke again, there was something strange in its voice. Something that almost sounded like worry. "Colonel, the mass revival protocol has never been tested. We do not know if it will work properly. The power requirements are enormous. If we activate it, we will lose all remaining defensive systems. If the Corvathi reach those chambers, everyone dies anyway. Wake them, Guardian. Wake them all." Another pause. Then, initiating mass revival protocol. Estimated time, 6 hours. "Colonel, once this begins, I cannot stop it. And you will be completely alone." "I know." Lucy started moving toward the main facility. Her legs felt like they were made of stone. Every step was an effort. But she kept going because there was no other choice. Behind her, deep in the earth, 4 million cryogenic pods began to glow with soft blue light. The process had begun. In 6 hours, humanity would wake on this world. If Lucy could keep them safe for 6 more hours, the Corvathi breached the outer doors 3 hours later. Zethrak led his soldiers into the facility personally. He wanted to see the human defenders fall. He wanted to watch their faces as they realized they had lost. But there were no defenders. The hallways were empty. The automated guns were silent. The facility seemed completely abandoned. "Spread out," Zethrak ordered. "Find the sleeping chambers. And find that human woman." His soldiers moved through the facility in groups of 20. They checked every room, every corridor, every hiding place. They found nothing. No humans, no defenses. Just empty halls and silent machines. Then they reached the first checkpoint, and everything changed. Lucy had spent the last 3 hours preparing. She had placed explosives at every choke point. She had rigged traps in every corridor. She had turned the facility into a maze of death. The first group of Corvati walked into a hallway that looked empty. They did not see the thin wires stretched across the floor. They did not notice the explosive charges hidden in the walls. They took 3 steps forward. The explosion killed all 20 of them. The second group was more careful. They moved slowly, checking for traps. But Lucy was watching through the security cameras that Guardian 7 still controlled. When the group gathered together to examine a suspicious object, she triggered another explosion. 20 more dead. The third group tried to retreat, but Lucy had sealed the doors behind them. They were trapped. She sent her last 2 drones to finish them. Zethrak listened to the reports with growing horror. 50 soldiers, then 100, then 200. Every time his troops advanced, they walked into another trap. The human woman was not trying to stop them. She was making them pay for every meter of ground. "Pull back," he finally ordered. "Regroup at the entrance. We need a new strategy." But pulling back was not easy. Lucy had closed many of the doors, forcing the Corvati to take certain routes. Those routes were filled with more traps, more explosions, more death. By the time Zethras is regrouped at the entrance, he had lost over 1,000 soldiers. 1,000 soldiers killed by one human who should have been dead hours ago. "Commander," Krek said quietly, "our troops are frightened. They have never faced an enemy like this. Some are saying we should leave. Some are saying the old stories about humans are true." "The old stories are just stories," Zethrak replied. But his voice did not sound confident anymore. Inside the facility, Lucy was barely standing. She had used all her explosives. Her drones were destroyed. She had one pistol with a few shots left and a knife she had found in a maintenance closet. "Guardian, how much longer?" 3 hours, Colonel." "The revival is progressing well, but the Corvati are regrouping. They will attack again soon. I know." Lucy made her way to the final corridor. It was the last line of defense before the main sleeping chamber. If the Corvati got past her, they would have access to 4 million helpless humans. She sat down with her back against the wall and checked her pistol. 6 shots. She had 6 shots and a knife against an army. "Guardian, can you get a message out to anyone who might be listening?" "I have been broadcasting continuously since the invasion began, but I have received no response from the human colonies." Lucy nodded. She had not really expected help to arrive in time. This was her fight, her responsibility. She would hold this corridor until she could not hold it anymore. 3 hours. She needed to survive for 3 more hours. The sound of Corvati soldiers approaching echoed through the facility. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all coming for this one corridor. All coming for her. Lucy Grant raised her pistol and waited. She was afraid. Of course she was afraid. But fear had never stopped a human before. Fear was just another enemy to defeat. And Lucy Grant had been defeating enemies her entire life. "Come on then," she whispered. "Let's see what you've got." The first Corvati soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor. Lucy took aim. Her hand was steady. She fired. The galaxy was a busy place. Thousands of species lived among the stars. They traded with each other. They fought with each other. They built empires and watched them fall. But there was one thing every species agreed on. One rule that nobody broke: do not wake the humans. 3,000 years ago, humans had been the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had spread across 200 worlds. They built cities that touched the clouds. They created ships that could cross the stars in days. They were builders and dreamers and explorers, but they were also warriors. The Vexor Dominion learned this the hard way. The Vexor were a proud species. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They thought they were unstoppable. So when they found 3 human colonies on the edge of their territory, they decided to take them. They enslaved the humans on those worlds. They thought it was a small thing. 3 colonies out of 200. Surely the humans would accept this loss. They were wrong. The humans did not negotiate. They did not complain to the Galactic Council. They simply came. Their warships filled the sky above the Vexor homeworld. They gave one warning, and when the Vexor refused to release the slaves, the humans opened fire. They did not stop until the Vexor homeworld was nothing but ash and broken stone. Then they hunted down every Vexor colony, every Vexor ship, every Vexor outpost. Within 1 year, the Vexor species no longer existed. The galaxy watched in horror. And they remembered. The Crystal Hive made the same mistake 50 years later. They were a species that fed on neural energy. They thought human brains would make excellent food. They captured a human research station and began harvesting the scientists inside. The humans responded by destroying the entire nebula where the Crystal Hive lived. Billions of Crystal Hive creatures died in a single day. After that, nobody attacked humans anymore. The other species learned to be polite. They learned to be careful. They learned that humans looked soft and weak, but inside they carried something dangerous. Something that could burn worlds. Then came the Fade. Nobody knew where the Fade came from. Some said it was a weapon created by an enemy. Some said it was a natural disease that humans had never encountered before. Whatever it was, it spread through human space like wildfire. Millions died in the first month. Billions died in the first year. Human doctors worked day and night to find a cure, but nothing worked. So humanity made a choice. They would sleep. The greatest scientists in human history came together. They built massive underground chambers on every human world. They filled these chambers with special pods that could keep a person alive while they slept. They called it cryogenic sleep. A person could sleep for 1,000 years and wake up exactly the same as when they went to sleep. One by one, humans across the galaxy entered these pods. Parents carried their children. Lovers held hands. Soldiers stood guard until the very end. The last humans to enter the pods were the warriors, the ones who had protected humanity since the beginning. Before the last human closed her eyes, they sent a message to every corner of the galaxy. The message was simple. Do not disturb us. Do not approach our worlds. Do not wake us until we choose to wake ourselves. This is our only warning. 47 species received this message. All of them remembered what humans had done to the Vexor. All of them remembered the Crystal Hive. They looked at the sleeping human worlds, and they left them alone. Star maps were redrawn. Trade routes were changed. An invisible line was drawn around human space, and nobody crossed it. For 3,000 years, the galaxy kept its promise. Then the Korvathi arrived. The Korvathi came from a distant place, far beyond the edge of the known galaxy. They had conquered their own corner of the universe. They had crushed 17 species beneath their feet. They were strong and proud and hungry for more. When they entered the Milky Way galaxy, the other species warned them about the sleeping humans. They told stories about the Vexor and the Crystal Hive. They showed records of human warships and human weapons. They begged the Kovathi to respect the one rule that everyone followed. The Kovathi laughed. Commander Zethrak stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the blue planet on his screen. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he studied the readings. 4 million humans sleeping beneath the surface. Their defense systems were old and weak. Their power was running low. They are helpless, Zethrak said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. The other species are cowards. They fear ghosts and old stories. But I see only prey. His science officer, a female named Prulla, looked nervous. Her mandibles clicked together as she spoke. Commander, the warnings are very clear. Every species in this galaxy says the same thing. We should not wake the humans. The Kovathi bow to no one, Zethrak replied. Not to waking species, and certainly not to sleeping ones. These humans have been asleep for 3,000 years. Their technology is ancient. Their warriors are dust. We will take this world and add it to our empire. He turned to his tactical officer. Begin the invasion. I want soldiers on the ground within 1 hour. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, in a chamber that had been dark and silent for 3,000 years, something stirred. An artificial mind named Guardian 7 had been watching over the sleeping humans since the beginning. It had counted every second of every day for 3 millennia. It had kept the systems running. It had protected its charges from anything that came too close. Now its sensors detected ships in orbit. Alien ships. Ships that were not supposed to be there. Guardian 7 accessed its databases. It analyzed the threat. It calculated the chances of defeating the invasion with its current resources. The numbers were not good. The defense systems were too old. The power was too low. The enemy was too strong. But Guardian 7 had one option left. An option that had never been used before. The emergency wake protocol. In a special section of the cryogenic chamber, one pod began to glow. Inside was a woman with short dark hair and a face that looked peaceful in sleep. Her name was Lucy Grant. 3,000 years ago, she had been a colonel in the human military. She had been chosen for this exact situation. She was the first line of defense. The pod opened with a soft hiss. Cold air rushed out. Lucy Grant took her first breath in 3,000 years. Good morning, Colonel Grant, said Guardian 7. I'm sorry to wake you early, but we have a problem. Above them, Kovathi dropships were already entering the atmosphere. The invasion had begun, and Lucy Grant, alone and confused and still weak from her long sleep, was the only thing standing between the enemy and 4 million helpless humans. The universe had one rule. The Kovathi had ignored it. Now they would learn why that rule existed. 1 month after the invasion, the Galactic Council gathered for the most important meeting in 10,000 years. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives. The Great Hall was filled with creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had bodies made of crystal or light or things that no human could name. They had all come to hear what humanity would do next. Grace Mitchell stood at the podium. She was a young woman with dark hair and steady eyes. The awakened human colonies had chosen her to speak for them. It was a heavy responsibility, but she carried it with calm strength. 3,000 years ago, she began, we asked one thing of the galaxy, just one simple thing. Do not disturb us. Do not approach our worlds. Let us sleep in peace. Her eyes moved across the assembly. 47 species kept that promise. For 3,000 years, you respected our wishes. You remembered our history. You honored our request. We thank you for that. We will not forget your kindness. Grace paused. When she spoke again, her voice was harder. And we will not forget the species that did not keep the promise. The image behind her changed. It showed the battle for New Virginia. The Kovathi ships. the burning bases, and Lucy Grant standing alone in a corridor, fighting against impossible odds. "One woman," Grace said. "Colonel Lucy Grant held off your entire invasion force for almost 6 hours. One human against 12,000 Korvathi soldiers. She killed over 1,000 of them herself. She was shot 3 times. She was beaten and broken and left for dead. But she never stopped fighting." The images changed again, showing the human fleet arriving, the Korvathi ships exploding, the human survivors emerging from their cryogenic chambers. "Lucy Grant is alive. She will recover from her wounds. She will be honored as the greatest hero our species has produced since we first reached for the stars." But her sacrifice was not just about saving 4 million lives. It was about reminding the galaxy of something very important. Grace looked directly at the Korvathi delegation. The alien diplomats shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. Humans do not forgive attacks on our sleeping families. Humans do not forget when our children are threatened. Humans do not accept invasion, occupation, or conquest. We learned this lesson a long time ago, and we have never unlearned it. She stepped away from the podium and walked toward the center of the chamber. The Korvathi Empire attacked a human world. They killed human soldiers. They threatened human children. And now they will face the consequences. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched as humanity responded to the invasion. Human fleets emerged from dozens of worlds. The long sleep was over for everyone now. The caretaker populations had kept humanity strong during the 3,000 years of slumber, and now that strength was fully awakened. The Korvathi Empire had controlled more than 40 star systems. They had millions of soldiers and thousands of warships. They had conquered 17 species in their home galaxy. They believed they were invincible. They were wrong. Humanity did not destroy the Korvathi as they had destroyed the Vexer. 3,000 years of sleep had changed them. They had grown wiser. They had learned that complete destruction created fear, but not peace. Instead, they conquered the Korvathi completely, totally, without mercy, but also without unnecessary cruelty. Every Korvathi warship was captured or destroyed. Every Korvathi military base was occupied. Every Korvathi government official was removed from power. The empire that had seemed unstoppable was dismantled in 6 months. Human administrators took control of Korvathi worlds. Human teachers began educating Korvathi children about their history and their crimes. Monuments were built on New Virginia, listing the names of every human who had died in the invasion. Commander Zethrak was put on trial before the Galactic Council. He was found guilty of unprovoked aggression, attempted enslavement, and crimes against sleeping populations. His sentence was not death, but something that the Korvathi found almost worse. He was required to visit New Virginia once every year for the rest of his life. He was required to stand before the monument and read the names of the dead. He was required to explain to human children what he had done and why it was wrong. This was human justice. Not revenge, but remembrance. Not destruction, but responsibility. The galaxy watched all of this with a mixture of awe and fear. The humans had proven once again that they were the most dangerous species in the universe. But they had also proven that they could be merciful. They could conquer without destroying. They could punish without erasing. Some species wondered if this made humans less frightening. Others knew better. Lucy Grant was released from the hospital 3 months after the battle. She walked with a slight limp now, and her left arm had been replaced with a mechanical one. But her eyes were still sharp, and her spirit was still strong. She was offered every honor imaginable: planetary governor, fleet admiral, council representative. She refused them all. "I'm a soldier," she told Admiral Collins. "That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. If you want to honor me, give me a ship and let me do my job." Collins smiled. The caretaker fleet could use someone with your experience. We've got a lot of rebuilding to do. Then that's where I'll be." Before she left New Virginia, Lucy visited the cryogenic facility one last time. The chambers were empty now. The pods were dark and cold. 4 million people had awakened here, had taken their first breaths after 3,000 years, had stumbled out into a world under attack, and she had kept them safe. A small group of children found her standing in the silent chamber. They recognized her immediately. Everyone on New Virginia knew Lucy Grant's face. "Are the bad aliens going to come back?" one little boy asked. Lucy knelt down so she could look him in the eyes. "Maybe someday, someone will try again. There are always going to be people who think they can take what isn't theirs." "What happens then?" Lucy smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not cruel either. It was the smile of someone who knew the truth about the universe and had made peace with it. Then someone will be ready. Someone will always be ready. That's what humans do. We protect each other. We fight for each other. We never give up, no matter how bad things get. She stood up and looked around the empty chamber one last time. "The universe has one rule," she said quietly. "Don't wake the humans. And if someone forgets that rule, we remind them why it exists." Years passed. The story of New Virginia spread to every corner of the galaxy. It was told in marketplaces and military academies. It was whispered by parents to their children. It became a legend, a warning, a reminder. Don't wake the humans. They sleep so quietly. They look so peaceful. They seem so harmless. But behind those closed eyes are memories of species erased from existence. Behind that peaceful stillness are warriors who conquered stars. Behind that harmless appearance is something ancient and terrible, something that burns worlds and breaks empires. The Kavathi learned this lesson. Now their children learn it in school. Their monuments remind them of what happens when you threaten sleeping humans. Other species watched and remembered. The Vexer, the Crystal Hive, the Korvathi. 3 civilizations that had challenged humanity. 3 civilizations that had paid the price. In the end, the lesson was simple. Humans were kind when you were kind to them. They were fair when you were fair to them. They could be your greatest friends and your most valuable allies. But if you threatened their families, if you attacked their children, if you disturbed their peace, they would wake up. And when they woke up, they would show you exactly why the universe had one rule. Don't wake the humans. Some rules exist for a reason. Some warnings should never be ignored. Some species should never be underestimated. The Kolvathi ignored all of these truths, and they paid the price. The universe learned the lesson again, and the universe would remember. For as long as humans walked among the stars, that lesson would never be forgotten. Don't wake the humans. Never wake the humans. The end. Lucy Grant stood in the middle of the command center and tried to remember how to breathe. Her body felt strange. Her muscles were weak. Her mind was foggy. 3,000 years of sleep did not end easily, but she did not have time to be weak. "Show me everything," she said to Guardian 7. The screens around her lit up with images. She saw the Kolvathi warships hanging in orbit like hungry predators. She saw dropships falling through the clouds. She saw alien soldiers pouring out onto the surface of her world, their insect-like bodies moving with terrible speed. "The enemy has approximately 12,000 soldiers on the ground," Guardian 7 reported. "More are arriving every hour. They have established a forward base 2 kilometers from this facility. What about our defenses? Planetary shields are at 7%. Most of our weapons are damaged or out of power. I've managed to maintain a small number of combat drones and 1 atmospheric fighter craft." Lucy closed her eyes. 1 fighter, a few drones, against 12,000 enemy soldiers and a fleet of warships. It was impossible. Any reasonable person would give up. But Lucy Grant was not any reasonable person. She was human. How long until you can wake the others? The safe revival process requires 12 hours. Your emergency revival was faster, but very dangerous. I do not recommend it for others, unless there is no other choice. 12 hours. Lucy had to hold off an army for 12 hours with almost nothing. She looked at the screens again. The Kovathi were already cutting through the outer doors of the facility. Their tools sent sparks flying into the air. "Prep the fighter," Lucy said, "and give me every weapon you can find." 20 minutes later, Lucy was strapped into the cockpit of a fighter craft that was older than most civilizations. The controls felt familiar under her hands. Some things you never forgot. Even after 3,000 years, she launched into the sky. The Kovathi commander, Zethrak, was on the ground now. He wanted to personally oversee the capture of the sleeping humans. He stood outside his command tent and watched his soldiers work. Everything was going according to plan. Then one of his officers pointed at the sky. "Commander, we detect a single aircraft approaching." Zethrak looked up. He saw a small ship coming toward them, moving fast. Just one ship. One tiny human ship against his entire invasion force. He laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly. "Send interceptors to destroy it. This will be over quickly." 3 Kovathi fighters rose to meet Lucy. Their pilots were experienced warriors. They had won many battles in many places. They expected this to be easy. They were wrong. Lucy's fighter danced through the sky like it was alive. She rolled and dove and climbed with a grace that the Kovathi could not match. Her weapons were old, but her aim was perfect. She destroyed the first interceptor before he even knew she was firing. The second tried to run, but she caught him easily. The third lost it a little longer. But the result was the same. 3 enemy fighters down in less than 1 minute. Then Lucy dove toward the ground base. The Kovathi soldiers scattered like insects as her fighter screamed overhead. Her weapons tore through their landing craft and supply tents. Explosions bloomed across the base. Soldiers screamed and died. She made 3 passes before the anti-aircraft guns forced her to pull away. When she was gone, Zethrak stood among the wreckage. 7 of his landing craft were destroyed. 200 of his soldiers were dead. Supplies were burning everywhere. All from one human. One human who had been asleep for 3,000 years. "Commander," said his field officer, a warrior named Krex, "perhaps we should reconsider our plans." "No," Zethrak growled. "This changes nothing. She is still only one person. Bring down the heavy troops. I want that facility open within the hour." But as he watched the smoke rise from his ruined base, Zethrak felt something cold in his chest. It was a feeling he did not recognize because he had never felt it before. It was fear. Far away from the battle. In a place called the Galactic Council Station, representatives from dozens of species were gathering. They had all received the same message from Guardian 7. They had all seen the same footage of the Kovathi invasion. Ambassador Velth of the Rathani Collective was very old. He remembered the time before the humans went to sleep. He remembered the Vexor War. He remembered watching human warships fill the sky. "They woke a human," he said to the council. His voice was shaking. "Those fools woke a human." The Kovathi ambassador made a dismissive sound. "One human against our entire force. She will be dead within hours. Then we will have a new colony world." "You do not understand," Velth replied. "I watched the humans fight the Vexor. The Vexor had 1,000 warships. They had billions of soldiers. They had been conquering worlds for centuries. Do you know how long the war lasted?" The Kovathi ambassador said nothing. 1 year, Velth continued. In 1 year, the humans destroyed the entire Vexor species. Not defeated, destroyed. Every ship. Every colony. Every single Vexor creature in the galaxy. And do you know what started that war? 3 colonies. Just 3 small colonies out of 200. Velf leaned forward. His 3 eyes were bright with old memories and fresh terror. You have not taken 3 colonies. You have attacked a world with 4 million sleeping humans. Mothers and fathers and children who cannot defend themselves. You have threatened their families. And somewhere, right now, one of them is awake and fighting. She cannot stop our entire force alone. No, Velf agreed. But she does not need to stop you. She only needs to survive long enough to wake the others. And Guardian 7 has already sent messages to every human world in range. The Kolvathi ambassador went very still. What messages? Emergency signals, distress calls, and something else. Guardian 7 has accessed the historical archives. It is sending every species in this region recordings of what humans did to the Vexor, what they did to the crystal. Hive. It is reminding the galaxy why nobody wakes the humans. On New Virginia, Lucy landed her damaged fighter at a secondary location. Her hands were shaking. Her body was screaming with pain. The emergency revival had brought her back to life, but she was far from full strength. Guardian status report. 8 hours until the main group is ready. Colonel, I must tell you something else. I have sent distress signals to the nearest human colony. There are people there who did not go to sleep. They stayed awake to watch over us. Lucy felt something warm in her chest. Hope. How long until they can reach us? Unknown. But they will come. They will always come. Lucy looked at the tactical display. The Kolvathi had regrouped and were pushing toward the facility again. More soldiers were landing every hour. Their progress was slow because of the damage she had done, but they were still advancing. 8 hours. She had to hold them for 8 more hours. I need more weapons, she said. More drones. More anything. I have located additional resources in storage facilities across the planet. I will guide you to them. Lucy climbed out of her fighter and started walking. Her legs were weak and her arm was bleeding from a piece of shrapnel. But she kept moving. Behind her, 4 million humans slept peacefully in their pods. Mothers held their children. Lovers dreamed of each other. Soldiers rested after lifetimes of fighting. They were counting on her. They did not know it, but they were counting on her. Lucy Grant would not let them down. The battle in the corridor was something that the Kolvathi would remember for generations. Lucy Grant stood alone against hundreds of enemy soldiers. She fired her pistol until it was empty, killing 6 soldiers with 6 shots. Then she picked up a weapon from a fallen enemy and kept shooting. When that weapon ran out of power, she found another one. And another one. The corridor was narrow. The Kolvathi could only send a few soldiers at a time. And Lucy made them pay for every step. She fought with a skill that seemed impossible. She knew exactly where each enemy would appear. She knew exactly when to move and when to stay still. She had been trained by the best warriors in human history, and 3,000 years of sleep had not made her forget, but she could not hold them forever. A plasma bolt hit her in the side. The pain was like fire spreading through her body. She stumbled, but did not fall. She killed the soldier who had shot her and kept fighting. Another bolt hit her leg. She went down on one knee, but continued shooting. Her vision was getting blurry. Her hands were shaking, but she refused to stop. Guardian, she gasped. Time? 47 minutes, Colonel? You must hold for 47 more minutes. 47 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. The Kolvathi kept coming. Wave after wave of insect-like soldiers, their mandibles clicking, their weapons blazing. Lucy killed them until the bodies formed a wall at the end of the corridor. Then she killed more until she could barely see over the pile of dead enemies. Commander Zethrak watched from a safe distance. He had never seen anything like this. One human woman, badly wounded, holding off his entire invasion force. She should have died hours ago. She should have surrendered. She should have done anything except what she was doing. What is she? Krex whispered beside him. She is human, Zethrak replied. And for the first time, he understood what that meant. Lucy's weapon ran out of power. There were no more guns within reach. She pulled out her knife and waited. The next Korvathi soldier to approach her died with a knife in his throat. She took his weapon and used it to kill 4 more. When that weapon failed, she fought with her hands. She broke necks and crushed windpipes and used every dirty trick she had ever learned. But finally, inevitably, she fell. A Korvathi soldier hit her from behind. She crashed to the ground and could not get up. Her body was finished. She had given everything she had. Through blurry eyes, she saw Commander Zethrak walking toward her. He stepped over the bodies of his dead soldiers and looked down at her with his 4 alien eyes. Impressive, he said. You fought well, human. But it changes nothing. Your people will still be ours. Lucy coughed. Blood came out of her mouth. But she was smiling. Check your orbital sensors, she whispered. Zethrak frowned. He activated his communication device. Bridge, report. The response was chaos. Screaming voices. Explosions. Terror. Commander. Ships. Human ships everywhere. They came out of nowhere. Our fleet is being destroyed. Zethrak looked up as if he could see through the ceiling and into space. His face went pale. Guardian 7 sent a distress signal, Lucy said. Her voice was weak but satisfied. To the nearest human colony. Turns out, not everyone went to sleep. Some of us stayed awake, just in case something like this happened. Above the planet, 247 human warships had appeared without warning. They were newer and more powerful than anything from Lucy's time. The caretaker fleets had been building and improving for 3,000 years while the rest of humanity slept. The Korvathi fleet never had a chance. Within 10 minutes, every single Korvathi warship was destroyed. Pieces of burning metal rained down through the atmosphere like shooting stars. But Lucy could not see any of this. She could only lie on the ground and listen to the sounds of panic coming from the Korvathi soldiers around her. No, Zethrak said. This is impossible. How did they get here so fast? How did they know? We always know, Lucy replied. When one human is in danger, others will come. That is what we do. That is what we have always done. Behind them, deep in the facility, the cryogenic chambers opened. 4 million humans took their first breaths in 3,000 years. They were confused and weak and scared. But then they heard the sounds of battle. They heard the Korvathi soldiers shouting. They understood what was happening, and something very old woke up inside them. The Korvathi soldiers in the corridor suddenly found themselves facing not one human, but hundreds, then thousands. Humans were pouring out of the sleeping chambers like water from a broken dam. They had no weapons, but they had their hands. They had their rage. They had 3,000 years of peaceful dreams interrupted by alien invaders. The Korvathi tried to fight. But fighting 4 million angry humans was like trying to stop an ocean with a sword. It was simply not possible. Some Korvathi surrendered immediately. They threw down their weapons and begged for mercy. They had finally understood what the other species had tried to tell them. They had finally understood the one rule. Others tried to run. But there was nowhere to go. Their ships were destroyed. Their base was overrun. They were trapped on a planet full of humans who had every reason to be very angry. Commander Zethrak did not surrender. He did not run. He stood in the corridor and watched as his invasion fell apart around him. He had come to this world expecting an easy victory. He had expected to find helpless prey. He had found a species that even in sleep was more dangerous than anything he had ever known. Us, tall human man pushed through the crowd of awakened sleepers. He wore a uniform that looked different from Lucy's, but clearly marked him as military. His face was weathered, but his eyes were kind. "Admiral Pete Collins," he said. "Caretaker Fleet, New Virginia Defense Force. You must be Colonel Grant." Lucy tried to speak but could not. The Admiral knelt beside her and gently checked her wounds. "Easy, soldier. You've done enough. More than enough. Medical team. I need a medical team here now." Humans rushed forward with equipment and supplies. They carefully lifted Lucy onto a stretcher. As they carried her away, she saw the faces of the people she had protected. Men and women and children, all watching her with tears in their eyes. "Is she going to be okay?" A little girl asked. "She's going to be fine," someone replied. "She's a hero. She saved all of us." Lucy closed her eyes. She had held them for nearly 6 hours. She had fought an army by herself and won. She had done her duty. Now she could rest. Commander Zethrak was taken prisoner along with the surviving Kovathi soldiers. They were led away by human guards who looked at them with cold eyes. The Kovathi commander walked with his head down. His dreams of conquest had ended in total defeat. As he passed a group of human children, one of them looked up at him. "Why did you come here?" the child asked. "Why did you try to hurt us?" Zethrak had no answer. He had come because he thought humans were weak. He had come because he believed the warnings were exaggerated. He had come because his pride was greater than his wisdom. Now he understood the truth. The warnings had not been exaggerated. If anything, they had not been strong enough. The universe had one rule. The Kovathi had ignored it, and they were about to learn just how high the price would be.